I'm Shane Bennett, and I'm here with Greg Livingstone, the founder of Frontiers, my friend, an amazing guy. And this morning we're going to talk about coaching and mentors. Frontiers was built with one of the core values being a willingness to be coached. And I love that. I think that's super important. And I want to ask Greg about mentors in his life. So Greg, thank you for taking the time to do this recording. And if you could go way back to the beginning of your walk with Jesus, share with us some of the people who had significant influence on you in that context. And then we'll move forward through history and talk about how that worked out at Frontiers. But back at the start, who were some people who had significant influence in a mentoring or coaching role in your life?
Well, back in Aspen, Colorado, at 16, when I became a Christian, I was still homeless, working in the restaurant for my room and board. A family named Ringel took me in. The parents of the girl who lured me into the theater, which was where the Baptist church was meeting. Most teenagers really hate being controlled and ordered around, but I loved it. It just shows how much we get our security in people who are so interested in our life that they want to make sure we do well. And people should keep looking for those kind of people. But then I went off to Wheaton College and met the chaplain, Evan Welch. And this was Jesus Christ in a crew cut. I've never met before or since, such a person who just totally lived for the other person. And everybody that knew him thought they were his favorite. and not out of hypocrisy, but because they probably were. And so that was my turning point from being focused on myself to realizing, wow, godliness means being focused on other people.
Wow.
And being moved with compassion for other people. And instead of asking how I could have a great career, I began to ask, what is greatness? How can I find what God considers greatness?
Well, let me pause there for just a second. What
Sure.
This guy, Jesus in the crew cut, what were some of the things that he did that made you feel like you were his favorite? And what were some of the things that he did that helped you get a hold of that shift from focusing on you to focusing on others?
Well, he was always available. I don't know how he could be available to everybody, but he was available. And you never felt like, I can squeeze you in like you just did. And the guy just, he didn't take his attention off you. And you just felt like, this is such a lover of people. And I'm not a lover of people. I'm a user of people to get where I want to go. So this was a transformation beginning in my own life. He prayed with me and for me that I would go into the ministry and do something really eternally valuable, but not in a sense of preaching at me, but like follow me. Then I got invited to that all-night prayer meeting that I've mentioned on other tapes down at Moody Bible Institute, where I met this radical kid, George Verwer, and who was used of God to open my eyes that there was all these people out there who had no knowledge of Jesus in places like Libya. He that doesn't forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. Wow. The Holy Spirit said, this is God getting my attention, which led to that night where I knew that God wanted me to go to the people who had no idea who Jesus really was. Luke 14:33, he pounded home, unless you forsake all that you have, you cannot be my disciple. So, wow, I want to be Jesus' disciple. I don't know what forsaking all means, but I think I better head in that direction. And the simple little things, like he said, if there was a plague in your city and people were all dying, but you had the medicine that could cure them, are you just going to say, well, it's not my job, it's not my calling? No, of course not. You're going to go crazy running around giving them the medicine. And that made so much sense to me, that we've got the medicine for the world, and it's an emergency. It's not maybe I'm going to try this out. If people are dying without Christ has really significance, that's a priority. My gosh, who can't figure that out? And then from Verwer, while I was on OM, I met Francis Schaeffer, spent time up with him in the Swiss mountains. Before I met him, I wasn't really sure everything in the Bible was from God. I went in there like a lamb and came out as a lion. Now notice the names of my sons. Evan, the oldest one, David Verwer, his middle name, and Paul Zwemer, which became one of my other heroes who pioneered the Arab Gulf. Francis Schaeffer convinced me that it was the non-Christians had their heads in the sand. I needed to do something about that. And then I got meeting Ralph Winter on a little plane after we both spoke at Penn State University. He invited me out to the U.S. Center for World Mission.
Wow.
And I met all these people in the stock pond that wanted to go to unreached peoples where the church wasn't. That, of course, led to the birth of Frontiers, because they were saying, we don't know any mission that'll send us to Uzbekistan or wherever. So a couple of the guys said, why don't you start a mission? And that led to the walk on the beach that needed the confirmation. And then influence has been fellow mentors, wrestling with issues together. I was learning as much as I was giving, if not more. We set an atmosphere of we're all coaching one another.
So go back to the that plane ride with Dr. Winter. What were a couple things that he gave you, if you can recall, a couple of things that he said or ways?
Oh, I can. We're sitting in this little commuter plane, very tight seats. North Africa Mission had just asked me to stop recruiting because they were full. I poured that out to him. What do I do? And he said, you never knew quite where he was going. He said, how do you pour new wine into old wineskins? And I said, I give up. How do you do it? He said, with a plastic inner lining.
Whoa.
And I still don't see what he meant there, but that must have been used by the Holy Spirit to say, we've been asking you, Sally and I, for the next step where we can contribute most. And I think it's to go over and meet these guys in Pasadena, California, and see what's happening there. And we became part of the happening, as so did cool. You.
Yeah, I think about my own life and how the fact that you guys were there, that you responded to that call, that you launched out. And so when I graduated from college, I drifted out there to hang out with Steve Hawthorne and went across to the Frontiers office and saw a guy who'd been at my school 2 years before and went to Jordan with him. And yeah, it couldn't hardly be more fundamental pivot in my life than that connection with Frontiers. So man, what a gift. Thanks for talking about that. I think the thing that I'm walking away from with this is that shift that I forget the guy's name, Evan, Jesus in a crew cut, who showed you how to live for others rather than yourself. And, I've been following Jesus, not as long as you, but for a while. And I need to think about that probably at least once a week, maybe every day, that I'm not in this for me. I'm in it for others and ultimately for God's glory. So thanks so much for that. In our next YouTube clip, we'll look at ways that God has used you to be a mentor for others. So thank you everyone for watching. Appreciate it. See you soon.